Sponsor an orphan, and you'll help support a vulnerable child to have the education they've always dreamed of, so they can build a brighter future. You'll be feeding a hungry stomach and a hungry mind with knowledge that will last them a lifetime. That's the power of an education. Sponsor an orphan now with Islamic Relief.
Assalamu alaikum rahmatullahi barakatuh, everybody. This is your host, Preacher Moss, the host of the SOS, the Shout Out Show. Hopefully that you had an amazing Labor Day weekend. I had an amazing Labor Day weekend. Shout out to ISNA and all the people that came out to ISNA. Massive shout out to everybody involved in a very successful show on Friday night. That would be Omar Regan. That would be Moses the Comic. That would be Marlon Hill. That would be Athir Yakub. Special guest Sabine Sadiq came through from Chicago as well. Yours truly. And we also want to give a shout out to our staff who were there. Sister Majahid came through and helped us out in the crunch. And we also want to make sure that we recognize our help, not a help, but our project manager. Of course, I'll be as consultant producer, Sister Satana Whitfield, working from the back, orchestrating, quarterbacking from the back, make sure we had things on par. Great show. Shout out to Bashar Salim. Shout out to Ashar Aziz and so many people that made that day possible. We had an amazing show on Friday. And shout out to Ushub as well, who they were our sponsors for this particular event. And I just want to say, man, just shout out to the people. It's not been out of commission in Chicago for at least, well, they haven't had a live convention for the last 2.5 years. It was so nice to be in the space and see people. I know some folks are going to say, hey, the numbers weren't what they were, but, you know, it's almost like a startup after 2.5 years. And the people that came, they had a lot of energy, just a lot of love. And it was good to just see Muslims in spaces, seeing each other, hugging each other, sisters giving kisses. I mean, it was a really good thing. And I wanted to say definitely that I really, really enjoyed the show. I did not close the show. I want to give a shout out to our closer, who I thought did a magnificent job when we did the show in DC for the comedy special. Moses the Comic closed the show, and I thought he did a great job. I already told him I want to use him again in some closing spots, largely because he's earned it, and he's earned it, and he's done it the right way. You know, he caught my attention. I see his work ethic, and we had a great show. So our topic today is, do manners still matter? And the title in and of itself sounds really, really simple. But we're really talking about what is the status of civility in the country. I put manners because civility people may not understand, or it's easy to misrepresent what that means. But it is a very, very important notion that I don't think we can overlook. And I think it has a lot to do with how the country is really going to move forward, how we are going to be treated. Does it have overtones of race? Absolutely. Does it have overtones of religious differences? Yes, it does. There is a bedrock being laid for a group of people to really usurp the idea of civility. And when you usurp the idea of civility, which we call manners, what happens is you create an opportunity for people to openly and willingly, and in some cases legally, oppress other people. I don't want to get too deep into the title today, but we're just kind of keeping it simple. Do manners matter? Of course, you're going to say they matter. If you come up in a crowd or an environment where manners were taught, what happens when you have a group of people who grow up where manners not only not taught, but they're not valued by the people who do practice manners. This seems to be the case now. I will forgive. I'm going to ask forgiveness up front because I have to go to my notes on some of this because it's almost like kind of putting a puzzle together. So I have to pull some notes from a couple years ago and things like that. But I'm going to ask a little flexibility from you because this is a really, really important thing. And I'm going to try and build the case whereby you can understand that this whole question of not just do manners still matter, but are manners even valued? Are manners being taught? You have the dissipation of manners. While we may be teaching per se LGBTQ in school, we're not teaching manners. We don't have civics classes anymore, which is things that, you say, what is that? It was education about the government that you serve and the government that's supposed to serve you. So listen, we're going to take a minute here. I'm going to ask everybody just hang in there. I hope that I'm going to get this right. Sometimes when you get out on some topics, you're out a little bit on a tightrope. I admit I'm on a tightrope today, but I think I'm going to be able to put it in. So pull it in. So please bear with me. Make the wire for me. We're going to be back here on the show talking, do manners still matter? Here on the ShOUT Show. We'll be right back. And we're back. So listen, we're going to jump right into our comment section. I've missed you guys since Thursday. Monday was a holiday, and I had to just get some rest. Let's just call it what it is. Even today, my brother JT picked me up from the airport, and we went to Applebee's, had some food, and I was through with it before I knew what to do with it, people. I face planted as soon as I got to the bed. Bam, that's what it is. So let's get to our comment section. Who we got in here today? I know who we got, but who we got in here today? Oh, we got a packed house today. Oh my goodness. Shout out Sister Ree. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. Sister Ree, I have to remember to give you the greeting when you come on, because sometimes I just say Sister Ree without trying to talk to you and give you and wish you blessings and peace and mercy. So stay on me. Say, preacher, you didn't give me the salams. If I don't give you the salams, hold me to it. All right, next up, Mary Moss. Happy belated Labor Day. What's going on, Mama Son? So nice to see you on the show today. And great conversation with you early today. I hope you're having an awesome one today. I hope you're having an awesome day today. As she called up and said, I didn't get my link. You were 100% right. I had not sent your link out. So I'm glad you got your link. Always a pleasure to see you on the show. Something that I do not take. I don't take for granted either. Next up, Adam Khan. Wa alaikum assalam rahmatullahi wa barakatuh, my dear brother from Canada. We have promoted you. Remember, we gave you a title now. You're the ambassador. Although is the special envoy to the show. You are the ambassador to the SOS show, and I see you are falling in line. You're right here on time, brother. Peace and blessings to you and your family, man. Much love. Next up. Wa alaikum assalam rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. What's going on, brother? Our top is 6 o'clock, straight up, straight down. Special envoy to the show, man. I hope you're doing well. I hope all of you had a good opportunity, a great weekend. You know, I know they had Muslim Fest up in Canada. I hope you guys got out and support Muslim Fest. My boy Moses the Comic was up there tearing it up, and my other brother, my little brother, Nabil Abdul Rashid, was up there telling jokes too, all the way from the UK. Shout out. Next up. What's going on, big brother? He said, Bilal Salahuddin and his queen, Sonia Salahuddin, says, we're in here. Hey, man, it's always a pleasure to see you in this spot, man. Give the queen a big hug, man. I hope you're doing well, and thank you again so much for joining us today. Next up, Sister Christy Santiago. How you doing? Wa alaikum assalam rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. Hope you're feeling well and doing well. I think you're in Tennessee, and if you're in Tennessee, I hope you're having a Tennessee special day. All right? Thank you so much for tuning into the show. hang in there. If anybody has any questions, make sure you get it straight. Wa alaikum assalam wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. My main man, Eric Carter. What's going on, beloved? Always a pleasure to see you in the place. A smile in the place, your face in the place. Always, man. We thank you. Thank you so much for joining us. Next up, what's the show without Johnny L. Thomas, better known as JT, who called his brother at 4:30 to make sure I still wasn't knocked out. Appreciate you, man. Thank you so much. Great lunch. Thank you so much for picking me up from the airport. We'll be doing it again for breakfast soon. All right. Hey, what's up, G? All right. Well, what's up to you? I guess I'm hanging in there. Wa alaikum assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh to you. Diggs, by the way, 7. Okay, man. Thank you so much for tuning in. And the awesome, the famous Maxine BK, the owner and proprietor of BeFinancialIndependent.com, one of our long-term sponsors, says, oh my gosh, manners matter more than ever because they are really devoid in civil dialogue and discourse. Therefore, without manners, human communications is broken down. We're going to get to that. So much so that I actually had to write notes today. Satana, mark this day that Preacher Mars had to bring notes on the show today. It was one of those days. All right. And of course, we have Sister Satana. Wa alaikum assalam rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. Sister Satana, congratulations to you. You are 2 for 2 on the Muslim Comedy Festival, making sure that we get out there and did our thing. It was a great thing. Even though we started 45 minutes late because the other session decided that they were more important than us, it's okay. We lived, and we had a great show, great 2-hour show. People are still talking about it. Allah's merciful. Okay, before I get started here, what we got here? Oh, I also want to give a shout out to Impact Hollywood, Sister Sue Abedi. I call her Sister OB, Sue OB, making sure that they were in the place to be much, just a lot of love in the place. You know, when you do a comedy show, man, sometimes we have a lot of love. It's really important. It's almost better than the show. So let me get to this point. Esquire Maxine BK is correct. Manners matter more than ever. They matter more than ever now because there's a dissipation. We're not teaching manners to our children. We're teaching them patience. We're teaching them to be partial. We're teaching them to be judgmental. We're teaching them to also be people who don't look for information. We teach very, very myopic skills to our children. And even in our business practices, it's become that way. I was having a good lunch with a good friend of mine. His name is Asit Kusel. And Asit is a jack of all trades, a great speaker, CPA. He does a program about the seerah of Prophet Muhammad, peace and blessings be upon him. And we were talking about social media. Listen to what he said about social media, that the reports are coming back regarding social media. And what did they say? The reports are saying about social media is that the growth of social media has led to a dramatic decline of empathy. A dramatic decline of empathy. People are not really worried about how you feel. People are not asking when they do things, how can I make it better? Therefore, you have the absence of redemption or redemption narratives where people turn around and go, I did something wrong. When you are able to apologize, when you are able to articulate something that was wrong or even something that was right in a particular way, that's a part of manners. Manners is not about being right or wrong. Manners is about acknowledging the way that you present something to somebody. In this study, and it's very, very interesting because the people who come up with all these social media stuff, the Googles, and it's really interesting, the Googles and the Apples and stuff like that. What's really interesting is these people that come up with all of these apps and things like that, they have something that's in common, that they don't let their children use these type of things. They don't let the children use the apps. So what does that say about us? It means that we are, in some regards, not test crash dummies, but definitely guinea pigs in some regards. I wrote this down. That while we're talking about do manners still matter, we are talking about, brothers and sisters, the end of civility. Now, this is why it's important. Many of us in the minority role or people of color or oppressed people are oppressed by virtue of the fact and judged by the fact that we have to reflect the civility of the oppressors, the people who oppress us. Per se, if they wear a certain uniform and you don't have that uniform, then it's a value judgment that you lack the awareness and the relevancy to be a part of whatever they're doing, right? Think about this. There's been an increase in bullying. We've been talking about this over and over and over and over and over again. The increase in bullying, the increase in suicides, and not just suicides. We're talking about African American suicides, adolescents at 10 years old. Why is that important? And I wrote this note because at 10 years old, these are the most crucial times where you're trying to learn civility, because as you get to 12, 13, 14 years old, you are in much more different social situations where it's not cute if you pick your nose, or it's not cute if you pass gas in front of your friends. It's not cute. It means that people will put a judgment on you. And the thing that's crucial that we can't remember, that we can't forget, is the fact that the things that we have taught or we've been trying to teach our children or have been taught to us has somehow been weighted differently in the last, I want to say, 10 years. It started with Obama. The fact that people who are politicians in a political space, when the president of the United States, the most powerful man in the country, speaks, someone, a politician, yells out, "Liar." And it leaves the president to have to follow the example of civility, even when people are not dealing with him in a civil way. Lack of manners. I speak of bullying. The words "may I" and "please," "may I" and "please" were conditions of respect when I was growing up. Now, if you say "may I" or "please," you're most likely to become a subject of bullying. Permissibility, or asking permission for something, is now seen as a weakness. So the kid that says, "Stop, leave me alone," it's not that anymore. You're seen as weak, and you're seen as a target. And in the school systems these days, because we don't have teachers in the spaces that we used to, or the teachers we have are not adequate, what you now have is a domino effect. With school, the place where you went for learning, social engagement, and also civic understanding, along with your education, has now been a breeding ground of contempt for the exact same things. That we send our kids to school, and the school system in and of itself, hear me now, the school system in and of itself is not in a place where they can frame civility or manners for kids. They're all under assault. So it's not for me to be able to send my child or your child to school to learn. We have to fight aspects of assimilation. Again, "may I" and "please" don't have the same value as they did when we were growing up. And now school systems have become places for agendas. I saw it with COVID, and it wasn't just the fact that people didn't want their kids to take the vaccine. It was the fact that teachers were under assault. You asked the teachers to do a job that you couldn't do, and now you place conditions on them. And this is really important. You place conditions on the teachers whereby they are threatened if they come into work, and they are threatened if they don't go to work. The idea of opening a door and saying, "You go first." No, you go first. You go first. Now it is, "I go first and you don't go at all." The particular positioning of not just words, but policies that enforce now that we don't teach manners, that manners don't mind, that even the people who would inject themselves in inappropriate ways. When you don't have manners, you leave out or tear out, if you will, a rubric for human behavior, a rubric for how people are supposed to act. Literally, we now are dealing with that right now. Law right now does not reflect manners. When you look at it, and I want to give a shout out to Sister Salim. How you doing? Wa alaikum assalam wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. Thank you so much for joining us. But this rule of manners, and this is not a stretch at all. I thought it was, but a rule of manners speaks to the fact that there is a condition that has to speak to where you are in society, number one, and two, a chain of command that has to do with religiosity. That there's a genteel relationship in religion, all of the Abrahamic religions, that speak to manners. That prophetic tradition is built upon what? Manners. You can go Moses, Abraham, Jesus, Prophet Muhammad, peace and blessings be upon him. They all speak of generosity, thankfulness, forgiveness, which are the conditions of human excellence in the best and the worst of times. And it speaks to manners. I can remember being a young Muslim, very, very young Muslim, and being in the prayer line and having a brother wave to me to tell me that there was a space. It was the way he did it. He didn't go like this. He said, come up, stand beside me. We are in this act of devotion. And the generosity of the prayer line is that we all equivocate that there's something better than us, that is something greater than us that pulls us together. Imagine now if you take that out of the equation, that there's nothing that equivocates us at all, which means in some regards, you have to have different pockets or different parties that equivocate to what they believe is important. Even the law now, and we can talk about the civility of the law, a woman's right to her body. It does not lead with manners. It does not lead with civility. The idea of Roe versus Wade, and I do understand, this controversial thing, but if you look to the scope of Planned Parenthood and what that means for young mothers and young fathers, what that means in terms of their ability to plan for a family, even that has been moved out, because Planned Parenthood has this thing that it's not Planned Parenthood, it's unexpected pregnancy. Let's call it what it is. But there are people who plan for their kids and they happen to be married. They might be married 2-3 years. They have relationships, not just with one another, but with each other's families, and they plan for their children. You can tell right now that even in that idea, the thing that pops into people's mind about Planned Parenthood is somehow somebody's made a mistake. As a man said, somebody done had an oops, baby. And it removes from the fact that this is a very beautiful thing, because you're not talking about it in terms of a religious treatise. You're not talking about it in the context of this is Quranic space that we are supposed to procreate. It now becomes you made a mistake, or somehow the way the child was born, it's not the child's fault. The way this child was born into the world somehow allows me to judge you. And sister's right. It was called Planned Parenthood because of the eugenics factor. True. But the original scope of it is that we have children. You plan for your kids in the basic space. I can't tell you how many people say it. Well, I've been in conversations with brothers and young sisters say, we've been trying to have children. They said, we've been trying to have children. They've been planning Planned unparenthood. I like the way. I guess we can't use that. But let me explain this to you, and I'm gonna take a quick break. I'm over. Sorry, Satana. It was one of those things. I told you I was going to the notebook today. So let me take a quick break. We're gonna be back talking about this whole thing about do manners still matter here on the Shout Out Show. I'm Preacher Moss.
Hey, babies. Welcome to Radio WCUC, Convenient Urgent Care, home of the smart patient. This is DJ What It Do. You know what time it is. It's the top of the hour, and the request lines are open. You know what you want to hear. I know what you want to hear. Operators are waiting.
I just got to hear don't get the COVID.
Don't get the COVID. Put your mask back on. The Delta COVID, more contagious than before. Don't get the COVID. Go on and get the vaccine. You know that it can keep you safe, and your people living up in your space. Don't get the COVID. You need to wash your hands. The Delta COVID is more deadly than before. Don't get the COVID. Go on and get your vaccine. You know that it can keep you from dying. Don't leave your family all alone and crying. Don't get the COVID.
We invite you to join our fight against COVID and against misinformation. It's time to listen to the doctors and trust the science.
When I think of people dying that don't have to die, it makes me sad. Now's the time to be sober. Together we can make this thing over. Let's fight the COVID. Convenient urgent care, home of the smart patient.
All right, we're back. Sorry about this, Satana. I know we ran over, but this is one of those type of topics. Listen, if you really want to understand why manners matter, is that when people deal with other people in the context of I'm producing something from you for you, I'm representing something for you, or I have an idea that while this group may wildly agree with this group, may not agree with it, there was still a balance, and that balance was manners. I was once asked in a government class, what makes a good law? What makes a good law? What makes a fair law? And I told the teacher, I know it doesn't sound right. I said, it's a good law if it has good manners, which means that it can be inclusive of other people, even if those people don't agree, even if they don't 100% agree, it's still built in that there's a goodness, or we're concerned with their well-being in the law. We haven't had that for quite some time. We don't have the FDR type projects where we're doing the WPA and stuff like that, where we have social programs. We're not putting out or advocating for our youth. We have very little for the youth. In fact, anytime you look at something for the youth, it's tied into teachers arguing with board members who have gotten elected for no other reason other than to, I don't even say express their agenda, but to inflict their agenda, which is a very sad notion when it comes to our kids. Even now, we sit here and we reward bad manners. That's why you still have a January 6th. That's why you still have a Donald Trump who's broken several major federal laws. But we reward bad manners. Now, the next show we're going to have, maybe tomorrow, a couple of weeks of part 2, is why do we reward bad manners? I'm going to say this to Sister Salim's point. You know, if you ever read the book Freakonomics, there's a part in the book where they talk about at some point in time, Mayor Giuliani in the 80s hailed himself as the crime chief, you know, the chief crime officer, because crime was down in New York. But when they went back and did the news, they realized that in the 60s and 70s, they had flooded New York with tons and tons of contraceptives. So it wasn't that crime was down. It was just the amount of people to do the crime was down. Manners. Think about it. I'll see you guys tomorrow, inshallah. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. Yes, manners still matter.